relative more poverty and backwardness. We all know Khyber Pakhtunkhwa now and Balochistan. So we brought in, gave the second highest factor to poverty and backwardness. Then the third thing was inverse population density, which took the most discussion, not only to agree but to understand. And that is, very briefly, if the area of any federating unit increases, the cost of development and providing public service per capita increases because of larger spread. But what is more, when the population of federating unit is less, the cost per capita of development public service is higher because the economies of scale do not apply. And when you compound it, divide area by population, you get this factor, inverse population density, which is a very punishing factor. If the inverse population density is high, the per capita cost of providing public service is much higher. The ratio, Balochistan's inverse population density is 19, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is 1.5, Sindh is between 1 and 1.5, and Punjab as a reference point is 1. It is understood there are countries with similar disparities of inverse population density. They give 4 times per capita cost of those subunits. Take the case of Northern Territories in Australia. So, and then the last thing was, I think it's a beauty of consensus that was struck sometimes like 1 o'clock in the morning at Lahore. How do we manage revenue generation stroke collection? And Dr. Zubair sitting here with a very strong point, moral point, ethical point, that this differential development took place because of differential distribution of revenues in the past, and now you want to hold us for that into future. But then we said, okay, the basis is revenue generation, and half of it could be revenue collection because we do not have enough data. And we use proxy data, but whatever it is, we finally agreed. And let me, in the passing, tell you this thing, that why this NFC award could be a watershed. Not for the contents, but for coming together in the spirit of federal harmony. If we can come together and restructure the percentiles, 10% federation to the provinces, and within provinces we could reduce the percentile, that is the spirit that federal representatives within the NFC demonstrated, and they can come together in the interest of federal future. And I won't be able to touch upon the 18th Amendment, but there's one point which is very regressive. If you look at Pakistan's Constitution, Article 160, which relates to the NFC award, the Constitution gives no guidance, places no limitations on how, with the changing need of the time, the NFC constituted by the legitimate government of the time can apportion it. That is what the framers of Constitution leave you with the flexibility, with the changing need of time. And you look up the constitutions of all other countries, NFCs are never given any bound and limits. And you can imagine, without the bound, we could come on agreement on this NFC. What perhaps are not the framers of the Constitution, a little bit of lower thinking, that they put the percentages of this award into the Constitution. It's never done. What if the next NFC wanted to improve them even further? So this has been a very regressive step to take the figures of the percentages and put them in the Constitution. That has diminuted the very spirit of the constitutions, because constitutions are fundamental laws for all time to come. And I hope the wisdom prevails and they do not stick to this part of the amendment, which is regressive, counterproductive, and not done. Thank you very
much. We have lunch is almost ready, but we want to give a couple of minutes for questions. If anyone have any questions for Ehtisham and the panelists.
Shams Abbasi from APP. I have a question to Dr. Gulzar. Sir, I have a question to Dr. Gulzar. Isn't we need a political reform before the tax reform, because we have observed the MQM is not agree to, implement the industrial tax. Instead, in a Punjab, PMLN, they have not agreed to, impose taxes on agriculture tax. Is it?
Sir, my observation is again directed to Dr. Gulzar. Actually, the implementation of the NFC award is contingent upon raising the tax GDP ratio every year by 1%. What I felt was that this is quite a stringent condition for the following reason. At CBR, at number of times we ran numerous regressions to measure the what we call it buoyancy of the tax system of Pakistan. It always came to be 0.95, taking any period of 20 years, and taking all the possible measures which every year have been taken. I'm saying about the buoyancy ratio, 0.95, 0.96. Again, taking out the national income account change in 1999-2000, which took away the tax GDP ratio by 2% off. Even then, and the new reforms which are being introduced at the behest of the IMF and all that taken together, there's a very limited likelihood that the tax GDP ratio will rise every year by 1%. There's a likelihood that it will be corroded by 0.02% and so on and so forth. So that means that the implementation and NFC award is based on a very serious constraint, so to say. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sir.
Let me take the second question first. Before my name gets set into your record as Gulzar, my name is Gulfaraz Ahmad, but it's pretty close. As far as the impossibility of increasing the tax to GDP ratio as projected in the NFC award, yes. If you looked at our history, this was not done, and therefore from that point of view it had to be a one-time effort. But then you see it in the context of the contents of NFC award. This came as a new wave. You can't achieve a new wave unless you do something unprecedented. And let me also make here that could you imagine the condition of the man who during 3 months of deliberations in the NFC meeting constantly was bombarded by 8 members that let's do something different. And when this predication was there, everybody knew that sponsors will go along with this increase. But unfortunately, there was a disruption. The man whose mind was bombarded was motivated